Welcome back to Society Case Files. My name is Robert, and today I'm going to revisit Blood Bowl 2. If you like this kind of content and you want to see more, please subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Otherwise, let's dive right in. If you're wondering why I'm not doing Blood Bowl 3 instead of Blood Bowl 2, there's a few reasons for that. As of this recording, Blood Bowl 2 has more teams than Blood Bowl 3. And if you look at the reviews, Blood Bowl 3 has a lot of complaints that I just don't want to mess with. If it ever comes down in price considerably, I'd give it a go. But for now, we're only going to talk about Blood Bowl 2, which a lot of people seem to agree is a more definitive version of the game than what you get in the newer version. And as far as the rules are concerned, I have the Blood Bowl game, the tabletop game. And while a lot of the stuff is handled behind the scenes in the video game version, it does seem to have enough of the rules to really give you the flair. In fact, I think that it would even be a pretty good way to understand the basic concepts of the game before you dove in and did the tabletop version. I've got the team that I'm playing in this video for the real game, and they do have a lot of the same problems that I experienced in this playthrough. Now, before I get too far in, I would like to say I make a ton of mistakes as to what you're watching. I hadn't played in a long time. I wasn't really thinking clearly about some of the tactics that I had learned when I played it much more intensely. And I probably would have gotten owned if the AI had been a little bit more clever. But it chose not to be. And actually, at the very end of this match, it chose not to win. And instead just sent the ball carrier over to knock one of my guys down for absolutely no reason, when they could have just walked straight to the end zone and won. But whatever. So my understanding of Blood Bowl on how to play, and please feel free to correct me in a comment below if you play Blood Bowl a lot more than I do, is that basically you're trying to create formations that make it difficult for the ball carrier to get downfield when you're on defense. So that basically if a character has to move towards the end zone, they're going to have to at least pass your guys and give them a chance to attack. You also want to knock people down when you can. It's a better decision to ensure that you've got some support so that you get better dice. And you have to be aware of the different types of powers each character has. So if a character has block, which is quite powerful, you don't have as many opportunities to knock them down, because even on a dice roll where you would both be knocked to the ground, the person with the blocker will remain standing, and thus they won't do a turnover. There's also things like when you're running around on the field, you kind of need to be aware, because it may be that you have moved too far and you're going to have to roll to stay standing because you can fall down. And in the Blood Bowl 2 video game, it seems like the dice are really against you, far more than I find even in a tabletop setting. Recently, I played a kill team match, and I rolled a lot of ones, but I didn't nearly screw up as much as I do when I play Blood Bowl 2. My vampires in Blood Bowl 2 are hopping into the stands for snacks all the time. And just to explain what that means is that when you're playing on the vampire team, your vampires themselves have a bloodlust trait, and they have to roll that before they do certain things. It's actually quite high, so they do have a good chance of overcoming their bloodlust, but if they don't, they'll either attack one of the thralls in their own team and drink their blood, or run into the stand and drink the blood of a fan. It's actually a pretty significant disadvantage, considering that you could lose some of your star players just because they need to go get a snack. I'd like to say that that disadvantage is offset by the fact that the vampires are supposed to be really badass players, but I dropped the ball quite often with a vampire. He didn't catch it, and he tried to just pick it up and couldn't manage that a couple times. Again, it's all about the dice roll, and RNG in this game is pretty brutal. I'm not entirely sure it's fair, but I mean, I played it with a friend, and it seemed okay. For the most part, I felt like I lost more from strategy than because I got screwed out of dice rolls, to be fair. But that doesn't mean that you won't feel like the dice rolls are just out of control. Like when you have to go for it, and what go for it means is that you have run beyond the normal realm of your move roll so that you're having to roll to see if you fall down. The chances of falling down seem to be way higher than what it shows on the board. Another small complaint I have about Blood Bowl 2 is that I can't actually see where it's showing me that I failed a roll before it offers me to do a reroll. It's probably just me, but it's not made as obvious as I would like. I just assume that there's a good reason that it's offering me the chance to reroll, so I do it. But whether it's my bloodlust or because I ran next to someone, I wasn't able to tell as easily. So again, that's probably my fault. The game has a pretty extensive campaign where you play through a whole bunch of matches and do all kinds of stuff. They're super fun. I like that. You're primarily playing the humans in that, and you get to do some pretty interesting matches on some really cool pitches. I would say that if you got it for no other reason than the campaign, you would be very happy with it. But I think that the friendly matches, when you're playing with one team that you picked or made against another, is actually quite fun too. And what's even better is that you get the commentators who are fairly good with the context, and it just adds so much to the game to listen to their foolishness. I haven't stopped laughing at some of their crazy antics. Even though I've played quite a bit. That's definitely part of the fun. And the fact that there are just so many options for teams, that really helps the game. It gives it a lot more longevity because you can try all kinds of stuff. You can play the Undead Legions, the Vampires, the Amazons, the list goes on and on. Whereas in Blood Bowl 3, they're still releasing stuff for it, but it doesn't really seem like they're listening to anybody in that respect. Whereas with Blood Bowl 2, it seems like they really took some community feedback and ran with it. At least that's my perspective on it. So not sure how other people feel. I'd love to hear from you if you think otherwise. Some of the things to keep in mind when you're playing Blood Bowl 2 is that the matches aren't necessarily short. This simple one I did here took about 40 minutes. So this isn't really a game that you're going to dive in and play for 10 or 15 minutes and accomplish something. It's not like doing a quick Vermintide map or a Darktide map. You're actually going to have to commit to get anything really accomplished. You can save the game, but for the most part, the turns just take as long as they take. Sometimes the turnovers are very quick when you make mistakes. At the end of this, I kind of threw it. I didn't even get my guys up. I was just trying to get through the end. But if you were to be a lot more serious than I was at the end of your match, it might even take a little longer. You could see an hour for a game. And if you're playing with someone else, it might even be longer than that because they're going to take some time and actually consider their moves once they get into a position where strategy matters a lot more. So something else to keep in mind is that as you play Blood Bowl, you really do want to come at it with some patience. You can't really get to the point where you're frustrated or annoyed because you'll start making some pretty big mistakes. When you stop thinking objectively about your turns and just want to like thrash the other players, you stop doing certain things, or at least this is what I have seen when I've watched other people play and when I've played myself, is that if I get annoyed, then I stop worrying so much about the overall high-level view of the game, and I just want to crush the other players. And that might just be an aggression born from too many first-person shooters. I've talked before about how turn-based games I'm not the most patient with, and so in Blood Bowl, that is very true again. You really do need to take your time, and if you do find yourself annoyed or frustrated, it's good to take a deep breath and really look at the map and decide, what is it that I can do to come back from that, as opposed to just rush forward and be aggressive? Now, that's not necessarily true if you're playing a team that is designed around that. I mean, if you're playing dudes that are meant to just trash people, then, go crazy. Cater to your style and ensure that you're playing the right characters for that style. If you want to beat everybody up, there are teams for that. The vampires aren't necessarily the right choice for that because, again, every action they take, they can potentially run into the crowd and start eating people. And the thralls aren't the best at pretty much anything. So it's important to use a lot more of the positional strategy. Now, that said, I do want to point out that several times in this match, I had a fantastic formation that Amazons would have to run through a freaking gauntlet to escape. And my guys failed to hit them in pretty much every single scenario. So even when you have a fantastic setup, it doesn't necessarily mean you'll succeed. You are still pretty much beholden to RNG. Just something to keep in mind. Final point about Blood Bowl 2 is that it is often on sale. I just picked up another copy for a friend for like $4, and it was the Legendary Edition. So you can get quite a bit of value. Right now, it doesn't happen to be on sale. I checked Cheap Shark, and the Legendary Edition is $30. But Again, it will be on sale again soon. And quite honestly, I just noticed that Blood Bowl 3, as of this recording, is on sale for $10. However, I also saw a whole bunch of weird currency you can buy, which indicates some microtransactions, and I'm not super excited about that myself. But anyway, that's enough about Blood Bowl 2. Just a quick revisit, just played through a match. Wanted to talk about a little bit. Have you played Blood Bowl 2? Have you played the tabletop game? Have you played Blood Bowl 3? What do you think of them all? Let me know in the comments and we'll have a chat. Anyway, this is Robert with Society Case Files signing off.